Men of Reddit, what's the most hurtful thing a girl has ever said to you? I'm not a good looking man. So imagine my surprise when a beautiful girl approaches me in a crowded bar. This had never happened before. She beckoned me close and said, "Hey, do you mind if I kiss you?" It's a dare. Then looked over at her table of friends in the distance, who were in absolute hysterics. Sure, I mumbled, not out of nerves for once but out of sadness. After I realized that I was just the butt of another joke. I didn't want to kiss her at all, but I'm socially awkward at the best of times, and saying no would have prolonged the situation even longer. No, I didn't enjoy it. As her lips met mine, I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. Her friends were cheering across the crowded bar and my own mates were starting to crack up. I wanted to disappear. Other people say much nastier things to me in public all the time, but this was the most hurtful. It was something about how quickly her words lifted me to cloud 9 and then dropped me back to reality. Edit. Wow, this seems to have struck a chord. Thanks for all the encouragement and for the gold. I should give this incident a bit more context so you know there wasn't a completely unhappy ending. This incident happened about 5 years ago when I was in my mid to late 20s at a time when I was putting myself out there for the first time since high school. So yeah, it was a setback at the time to realize that some people still act like that, but while unpleasant it certainly wasn't a life-defining moment, and I kept putting myself out there. I'm still socially awkward at times, and I'm still not an attractive man, but I regularly challenge myself in different facets of my life and lots of fantastic opportunities have come out of it. My confidence grows every year and maybe one day, that will translate into a romantic relationship. And if it doesn't, then that's not the end of the world. Oh, don't post much, but I might have a good one for this. Dated a girl around a year, and had just brought her home to meet my family during winter break. Since my family lives in Hawaii, I stayed behind an extra 2 weeks to spend time at home before the next semester started. 3 days after she got back from her visit, she decided to break up with me over Facebook. Really took me by surprise. This was the first real relationship I had ever had, and the first girl I ever loved. I took it pretty hard. After a pretty rough on me 2 weeks being confused, I gave her a call to set up a time I could pick up a few personal belongings I had left in her apartment. For safety reasons, she had a lock on her door. She told me the last time we spoke in person, "I don't know why you are taking this so hard. You shouldn't let someone mean this much to you in your life. Just move on, it's no big deal. You will be fine." Might not seem that bad to some, but that sheet will stick with me forever. At the time I felt like I would never get better. Have to say though, it was probably the nicest thing she ever did for me. Got my sheet together and worked on myself. Honestly, I couldn't be happier than I'm right now. Sometimes things happen for a reason. A bit of a backstory, but the case has a bit of poetic justice as well. This was in college, and because I tend to have a large vocabulary, the girl that ended up becoming my fiance thought I was from some rich family out in suburbia, as opposed to a scholarship student. Anyways, long story short, she begins to prepare moving into my rent-controlled apartment and disillusionment begins setting in immediately. She sees she's not going to be getting her white picket fence fantasy right off the bat and all effort into the relationship plummets. She's basically chilling at the apartment online when not in class. I come home from work one day to find she has been playing the town bike in our bed. I tell the dude to get out of my place before I decide to blow his head off and tell the cops he was rapping my fiance and begin having it out verbally with the soon-to-be ex. And that's when she dropped the bomb. Well, if you were a real man, you'd be much taller, faking schoolboy. Now, my height has never been a sensitive topic to me. I've always found ways to make it work to my advantage. But hearing that come from a woman who had basically been a leech on my resources and time, so she could have fun riding a cork carousel on my dime, was infuriating. But I managed to keep myself under control. Well, to be honest, I'm not a fan of women who slutched it up all over town. But at least the slutched has control over who she bangs. The good thing about slutchts, though, you don't ever marry one. She teared up, called me an asshole, and said I had only myself to blame. I shook my head and went, "True, I'm an asshole. But all of this today, that's on you." And this asshole is through with your lying what? Get your sheet and get out. Bonus round. She showed up on my doorstep 6 months later with a baby in tow trying to get a place to stay. She got kicked out of her place she had been staying at because she got caught cheating again. When I told her to GTFO, she looked down at the baby and tried to convince me it could be mine. My response: woman, do you expect me to believe a white woman and an Irishman would form a mulatto baby? Get off my doorstep before I call the cops. Haven't heard from her since. Story time. Had a blind date for coffee. I was driving through traffic and realized I was going to be 10 to 15 minutes late. So, about 15 minutes before the scheduled time, I sent a text apologizing and saying I was going to be 10 to 15 minutes late. She texted me back saying that our mutual friend, the one who was setting us up, finally sent her a picture of me and that I didn't need to bother coming. I asked why, as I had already driven the majority of the way. Her response: you're not good looking enough to wait for. Call ended there and then. I got coffee anyway and a hot dog. It was a really good hot dog, and I regret nothing of that day. 2. In high school, I had a huge crush on a classmate of mine. I spent hours making some crafted animals for her. She wanted to be a vet as a Valentine's Day gift. On the day, I gave her the animals and some chocolates and asked her if she would be my Valentine. She looked me straight in the eyes with nothing but utter terror. She left the gifts on the ground, stood, backed up a few feet, then walked away without saying a single word to me. We had many classes together for the next year and a half of school. Fast forward 10 years later, I'm going through my old yearbook. In it, I find out that when some friends were signing my yearbook, that she slipped a letter inside. The letter was simple and short, saying she apologized for her behavior and that I was a really nice guy. She explained that I scared her and she didn't know how to react back then. Turns out, she had a friend pick up the gifts without my noticing and she really liked them. I let her know I got the letter, tried to acknowledge the situation as it was, and went out and got some coffee and a hot dog. It was a very good hot dog, and I regret nothing. 3. At a bar, start chatting with a woman next to me. I asked if I could buy her a drink. She said that there was no way she would ever be interested in me, so I would just be wasting her time. Felt like she was evaluating my entire worth as a human and judging it to be utterly beneath any possible redemption because of a 3-minute conversation with me. Somehow, I was so worthless, she could sense it near immediately. Got a bar hot dog this time and beer. I regret nothing. 4. Had a girlfriend for almost 3 years, and we were discussing if we each wanted to have kids or not. She knew she wanted kids, as she had wanted them ever since she could remember. I told her that I didn't feel that way, and at best, I would stay and raise a kid. However, I had to be honest and state that I didn't think having kids was something I really wanted. She paused a bit, looked at me, and said, "But you'd be such a good provider." I know it isn't a mean thing to say, but I was expressing what I wanted, and she turned it into something that she wanted. She wanted a provider for her kids and some guy who could fit that bill for her. So, we broke up after that, and she took all my Dungeons and Dragons stuff when I was away at work and moved 7 states away. No hot dogs were had. She took those too. So many regrets. 5. Middle school dance. I asked the prettiest girl I had ever known till then if she would go to the dance with me. She said no. That was fine. It was worth the risk, and I was feeling like $1,000,000 for even getting the courage to ask her. A day later, she comes up to me and says that she would like to go to the dance with me. Asked forward to the dance, and she kind of ignores me the whole time to talk to another classmate of mine. Finally, the last slow dance of the evening, and she approaches me. We dance, and it was amazing. I'm not a super emotional guy, but it was time slowing, adrenaline pumping, face flushing, time traveling, amazing. At the end, she kisses my cheek and walks right over to the same classmate. I hear her say to him, "There, I did it. Can I have my stuff back now?" That same classmate repeatedly pantsed me throughout the entire year of gym class, before and after the dance. I never understood what his deal was. He's a banker now. No hot dogs. Youre Weak. You aren't a man. You're a pathetic immature boy who can't do anything with his life. I need a man, not a boy. I don't love you anymore, and I haven't for the past few months. My ex that I had been with for 3 years everyone. I moved down to Florida to be with her, took classes at her college, got a job that didn't pay much, and helped her, loved her, and I had forgiven her so many times for shitty, unfaithful mistakes on multiple occasions. Not only that, but she verbally and physically abused me, and she had a guy who was just a friend that I said I was uncomfortable with and didn't trust. She even admitted to liking him when she was in HS with him as they were best friends. She said for me not to worry and ended up cheating on me with him on multiple occasions. Even my cousin, who was her best friend, sided with her and not me, her own blood. Also the part where she said I was weak was because depression and anxiety had been taking its toll on me a lot without me knowing it existed. Also I had ulcerative colitis, and I was sheeting so much blood that I almost needed a transfusion. I was so low in energy and so hopeless, I couldn't do anything but sleep all day and cry. I needed help and nobody gave it to me. She caused a chaos in my life so terrible that I could never forgive her, even though I feel as if I would if she started taking to me again. Endless months of psychosis, destroying my relationships with friends and family, alcoholism, and 2 suicide attempts. After being diagnosed with all kinds of shit, I was prescribed around 15 pills a day that have only made things worse. I have finally found some peace by smoking cannabis every day, but it's so taboo that everyone hates me for it. Sorry for the wall of text, folks. Senior year of high school, my best friend's boyfriend broke up with her just before prom, and she was crying to me about having nobody to go with. It was like the moment I had been waiting for since the day we'd met. I asked her if she would go with me. Her response was, "That's sweet, but I want to go to prom with someone I can have a relationship with." That was rather soul crushing. Justice came later. She realized over the weekend that my offer was more than a pity invite, and that I had meant more. She came back to school ready to accept, only to find that after she'd rejected me, I asked another girl who said yes. By a strange coincidence, she ended up going with a guy who wanted to go with a girl I went with. So I wanted to go with her, she wanted to go with me, he wanted to go with my date, but the only reason we didn't just work things out and swap around was because my date was quite happy and content to be going with me. I still got a dance in with my best friend at least. It was kind of like the end to a John Hughes movie. Runner up, playing flashlight tag with a bunch of neighborhood kids one summer evening. This girl, a cousin of our neighbors that I'd only met that night, hid with me behind a tree where she declared, "You know, you're the most buck-toothed person I've ever met." The strange thing is I'm not the least bit buck-toothed, but that horrible comment left me self-conscious of my smile for years. I was with a girl for 4 years. On that final Christmas day I asked her to marry me in front of her family. After a short pause she said softly that she wanted to talk to me. After an awkward 5 minutes in front of the family we both went upstairs, and she proceeded to explain to me that she had been sleeping with another guy, workmate. Which I knew she was friends with and spoke at, but not being a controlling boyfriend I'll let her go out and have fun, party, watch films etc. About a week of trying to work things out she refused to stop seeing the guy and eventually we came to blows. I was walking the dogs when I saw him driving towards me with my then girlfriend in the passenger seat. I stood in the road wondering what the fuck had happened. He decided to run his car into me, and with me holding on to the wiper blades he drove like a madman and eventually stopped. I shouted at him saying, "You have a kid in the car, I'm not going to start on you, just have a question." He proceeded to get out of the car and try to attack me. At that point I hit him once in the face, laying him out on the ground. My girlfriend got out of the car and was crying saying sorry, at which point both dogs ran towards me, and as I walked off I just said to her, "If you want to be with a bloke that is going to put your life and his kids in danger, don't come running back to me." A month later I found out she was with him and he was sleeping with a 14-year-old girl I knew, so I decided to send her the pictures and videos the girl had of him out of spite. 5 years later she has a kid with him, and as far as I know he is nowhere to be seen. Been in a stable 5-year relationship now with 2 kids and an engagement ring in the cupboard, but I'm too scared to ask my new girlfriend to marry me just because of being scarred in the past. I was left standing alone in the cold of a Thanksgiving night at a bus stop waiting for her. A few days later I received this as an email. It broke me as a functional person. It has been 2 years since I touched a girl, and before this one it was 8 years. I've given up the belief that I'll ever be able to draw any semblance of happiness from being with another person. I made a Meet Me account not long after we got back together as a form of communication with other males my age in a flirtatious manner. There were creeps and a few gentlemen, but after a while, talking wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted sex. That sounds incredibly superficial typing that and then reading it, but I guess it's true. My goal was to have you as my boyfriend for emotional support, mental support, advice, and everything else, while having a guy just for the physical aspect of a relationship. I met a guy on Meet Me. Name. He was sweet and funny, and he was DTF. No, he wasn't especially cute, or stand out attractive or anything, just average. He would come over to place and pick me up, and we'd either go back to his place or the park or the store for a few hours. He helped me move here when I couldn't lift the boxes because of my caste. The whole time I was with him, I compared you to, even though it wasn't fair to either of you. You were obviously the better choice, the best fit, the healthier relationship, the best one for me. But I was naive. I reasoned that you were too far for me and, name, satisfied the physical aspect of my being. He also taught me some things about my sexuality. For example, I absolutely love being on bottom. He found out that the only way to make me come is through direct clitoral stimulation. I cannot give head, I always chicken out, etc. Also, the way I could love a girl besides myself is platonically. So I guess I'm straight. Then the feels came. One day, I accidentally professed my love to him. The next day, he picked me up from school and had flowers and took me out to dinner, and his parents were gone that weekend, so we went to their house and had a great night. And I thought I was in love. I was in lust, but I couldn't tell him. I guess a few weeks later I realized I was in love. Almost as soon, the fighting started. I told him I wanted to go up to state Thanksgiving week. I had already bought the ticket. He asked who I would stay with. I told him you were an ex-boyfriend. He became so close to the thought of me going I realized he was in love. My initial idea was to go up and break up with you in person. I felt that I owed you that much. My worker convinced me not to go up. He knew about you. I told him everything about you. He was immensely surprised when I told him about name. Worker is like my dad, I guess. It's really early and my brain isn't making all the right connections, so this may come out very jumpy and poor in quality. I'm sorry. So I didn't come. I feel terrible that you waited out in that cold November air in the night alone. I actually debated for a long time just going up, forgetting about name and worker, and just rekindling with you. But I couldn't. You were so nice and sweet, and you don't deserve any of this. If I do send you this tonight, I'm sorry. I can already feel myself slipping into that bleary half-awake state. I started slightly abusing over-the-counter medication such as painkillers and cold medicine when I was sick. I've skipped so much school, I don't even remember the last time I was in class at least 2 months ago. I hate myself. I started cutting again. I'm so sorry. I'm a mess. He's nice and all, but he's just another mean, greedy and a child and insecure piece of crap. Relationships need 2 people, right? One or both, stable, and one or none, unstable. If both are unstable, it won't work. At least one needs to be rock for the other. You were my work and what I did was stupid and childish. If you had problems, you let them take the back seat. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting me be your center. I would beg and plead to get you back, but I fear it would be in vain. Besides, I'll just do it again if you weren't here near me. The truth, I already sense that I'm at that extremely needy with him. Seeing him every other day isn't good enough. I miss you and love you, but you don't deserve me. You deserve someone loyal. You were always loyal and caring beyond faking belief and nice and sweet. and loving and humble and kind and funny and American Englisher and humor and good and dark, but wanting to be light and good, and not bad and nice and stuff. How did you always have so much patience? I didn't like how you always wanted me to do sexual things, it makes me feel weird. I wish I could use present tense. I already took my sleeping pill and my thoughts are a bit scattered. I really love you. You were the best thing that happened to me since ever. I hate myself, and I recently have had thoughts about killing myself. I thinking gun, but I don't have one. I miss you so damn much. Why were you always so good? You made him feel like shit for being even a smidgen not as good. You're dark and twisted but perfect. I would love to crawl in your mind and explore you. Is that creeped? No reason. There's a lot of red and green on my screen crust mass. I hate Christmas. I gotta go. Till. You are best. My first ex, 4 years, had a few good ones after we broke up, and I was trying to get her back. I will never take you back. We will never be married, and I will never have your children. Kinda dramatic, but a lot built up to that, and we had seriously talked about marriage and children before. I still love you, just not the way I did, and not the way you want me to, and that is never going to change. I was cheating on you. In the 3 weeks that I have been with the guy she left me for, but somehow not the guy she cheated with, I feel closer to him than I ever did to you. Again, we were together for 4 years. She called me drunk one night after we broke up, and she was with her new man, and asked me to come over and have sex. I asked if she was trying to get back together or leaving her new man, but she said no. So I asked why she called me, and her answer was, because you have the most amazing dick. I felt like I got kicked in the stomach. To think the woman I was in love with and had planned to marry one day had reduced me in her mind to a good fuck. And an odd one to close up. But the last time we hung out, after she had started dating her new boyfriend, me still trying to get her back, just before she left, she looked at me and said, "Wow, you really do have beautiful eyes." This struck me, because she was firmly committed to not being together, had cheated on me, and left me for an old friend of hers, not even the guy she cheated with, someone else entirely. And she always told me my eyes were the first thing she noticed about me when we met, and the first thing she was attracted to about me. That had a special kind of sting. In spite of all that, and more, a few relationships have come and gone. I'm getting married this year to an amazing woman who I love, and who is perfect for me. Life goes on. Cheers. Dated a girl in college who studied abroad in Europe for a year. After months of planning, texting, Skyping, and organizing a trip through 3 European countries, I flew the 4,000 miles from the US to visit her for 2.5 weeks during my school's winter break. She asked me to visit multiple times, so I left my family, missed Christmas and New Year's, to spend time with a girl I had been dating for a year. On day 2, in a country that I did not speak the language, she told me that she didn't want to date anymore. That was rough and confusing, but it didn't really hit home, because we were sleeping in the same bed at her apartment, and acting kind of normal outside of that comment. What hurt was 2 days later during a hike, we ran across another person from her study abroad group and she introduced me. "This is my friend from home." I stood there looking like a dumbass, shook the person's hand, said hi, "Nice to meet you," and then we kept walking. The worst part was this was supposed to be a big romantic trip. We went to Switzerland and Italy, did the whole dinner with a bottle of wine almost every night kind of thing. When I came home, I didn't tell my parents what happened for about 3 months, and left out the part about her dumping me when I was there. Told them it happened recently. My parents are really cool and didn't mind me missing the holidays. They weren't thrilled, but were okay with it, and they really liked this girl and thought things were going great. Basically, spent around $2,000 and flew 4,000 miles to visit my girlfriend of a year, missed the holidays with my family to get dumped on day 2 of a 17-day trip. Still not completely over that one. There was this one girl, Emma. She was a recent transfer from the school across town, and we hit it off so well. I was thinking that this may be the girl that I finally have my first real relationship with. We hung out every day during our leadership period on the dot, and got to know each other so well, swapping suicide stories and such, real close. I found out she had a boyfriend and figured we could just keep this special friendship going, but shortly after that she transferred back to her original school. Our texting conversations basically halted. At this point, I was torn apart. I had never shared so much and got so much in return in such a short amount of time. I thought maybe it was love. Friendship love, of course, that I only dreamed would someday turn romantic. Anyway, a couple months later, I called to invite her to my 18th birthday party. No reply after 2 weeks, so I called again the night before the party. After 15 minutes of talking to the boyfriend and her guy friends who were with her at the time, I got to talk to her and she started, "We were never friends. We are never going to be friends. I wouldn't fuck you if you were the last person on earth after all that." That's what she says. I think it was because her boyfriend was sitting right there, but still, that faking crushed me. This girl I was dating was moving to a different city. It was like 30 minutes away, but she said she was really stressed about everything and told me she wanted to end it. I understood her, but was a bit upset about it because she meant a lot to me. She was the first girl, and to be honest, only girl, I truly loved. About a week later, she messages me and asks me if I was okay with her dating one of my friends at the time. I was understandably upset because about a week earlier she was yelling me how in love she was with me and also that she broke up with me because of distance, but my friend lived in the same town I did. So I got a little mad and asked her what the hell was up. She then told me that she only dated me because my friend didn't want her and she was never actually in love with me. Paraphrased, cannot remember actual quote. I was devastated. The only girl I ever loved just used me because she wanted attention, while the real guy she wanted to be with was ignoring her. I was probably the only person who ever listened to everything she had to say. When she was upset, you'd bet your ass I would listen to every word she said. I did whatever she needed from me, and I thought she truly loved me. Instead she lied to me, and I wasted around 8 months of my life on someone that couldn't care less about who I really was. I was depressed at the time, and this just sent me spiraling down even more. Sorry for the rant, just had to get this out. I chased a girl for months, years during college. She was beautiful, funny, and I fell hard for her. After pulling all my moves, first kiss under the stars, first make out in the rain, driving hours to see her, etc., we started dating. We dated for a semester in college, and then she went abroad for a semester. Like all relationships, this was hard, but I saved as much as I could and was able to have enough money to go see her, literally halfway around the world, for 2 weeks. I had enough for the flight, but my father loaned me money that would take most of the summer to pay back for the hotel/food/etc. The first couple days were great. We were back together and everything was right with the world. I met her friends, she showed me all the cool things she did in this new part of the world, and we spent every night in bed. However, I slowly realized this was all show. Something had changed between us. Maybe it was her, maybe it was me, but it was definitely her. The last few days of our trip were strained, and we had miserable weather. Once we got back home, we went to our respective hometowns for towns. She called me for what was eventually the breakup call. I got pissed that I had sacrificed time and money to come see her during the end of her semester abroad. This is when she said, "Is you sacrificing for me supposed to make me love you more?" I thought to myself, yes, that's being in a relationship. Anyways, she's happily married now. I met the girl of my dreams shortly thereafter, though I didn't know that for a couple years, and life is pretty swell. TLDR. Find someone who you want to make sacrifices for, and who wants to make sacrifices for you. Silence. It's always the worst. I had a girlfriend once that, at the time, I deeply cared about. We started long distance, but eventually she moved out to be with me, which I took as a fantastic sign. We'd had an extremely rough patch of off again, on again for nearly 2 years, but I thought this meant things were finally changing for the better. Ironically, as soon as she was out here, that's when everything switched off. We used to spend hours talking on the phone, but I could barely get 2 words out of her sometimes. We had a wonderful sex life, plenty of visits prior to the move, as well as plenty of discussions. In the interim proved we were sexually compatible, but suddenly she never wanted to be touched. I tried my best to be supportive, but I got nowhere. The killer for me was when we went on vacation. I'd rationalized a lot, coming up with reasons for why she wouldn't feel up to such and such in a given moment, but this was different. We were taking time off from work, we were going to visit Orlando and have some fun. During this trip, I did something special for her. She used to live on the West Coast, and she loved the beach. I knew she missed it. So, one night, I drove us 2 hours from Orlando to the west coast of Florida. Timed it so we'd arrive exactly at sunset. It may not have been home, or technically an ocean, but it was the only place this side of the country that we could watch the sunset on the beach. Everywhere else, it would rise, but here it might be a taste of home. I'd hoped she'd see I at least understood and appreciated the change she'd made for me. When we arrived, I explained why we were there and told her I loved her and all that. She said thank you and gave me a side hug. Then we walked in silence for about a half hour. Not in a romantic, cutesy, we don't even need words to know how we feel kind of way. More like a someone keeps farting very loudly at this funeral and it's making us all very uncomfortable kind of way. The 2-hour drive back turned into a massive discussion about whether or not we could make this work. Ultimately, we broke up, which was probably good. We tended to bring out the worst in each other, and in her defense, I was capable of being crappy too, especially after that night, which is a whole different story. Short version, I was a huge asshole. But that's how I learned that the worst thing you can say to me is nothing at all. I've talked about that with every girlfriend since, and my current one has been really supportive and we are wonderfully happy together. And a huge part of that, for me anyway, is that when she's upset, she talks rather than bottle it in. I'm around 16 years old with my first serious girlfriend. We've been dating for about a year. We're on a school trip and playing truth or dare with other random classmates. The truth that keeps getting asked is, aside from your current boyfriend/girlfriend, who do you want to have sex with? I answer the question honestly, saying the name of a girl who was not there. She'd been a lot of the other guys' answers as well. My girlfriend took this in stride, but then it was her turn to answer. I braced myself for her response. Who would it be? I hoped she would say some random popular guy's name. After all, a guy like that has his pick of almost any girl he wants. What are the odds that he'd choose my girlfriend? So I'd be okay if she said some random popular guy. Or a celebrity. Man, a celebrity would be a great, safe pick. Nothing to worry about. I should have said a celebrity. Damn it. But what if she says some normal guy's name? What if it's someone who actually would want to hook up with her? What if it's my best friend? What if she says the name of a guy who is right here in this room? But she didn't say any of that. What she said was far worse. Something I never could have seen coming 15 years later. I still remember it word for word. Well, whenever I imagine having sex, it's never a face, you know? It's just this guy, and he's sweet and wonderful, but he doesn't have a face. And then a random girl chimes in, it's your husband. And my girlfriend replies, yeah, I think it is. This was devastating to me because I'm around 16 years old with my first serious girlfriend. We've been dating for about a year. We're on a school trip and playing truth or dare with other random classmates. The truth that keeps getting asked is, aside from your current boyfriend/girlfriend, who do you want to have sex with? I answer the question honestly, saying the name of a girl who was not there. She'd been a lot of the other guys' answers as well. My girlfriend took this in stride, but then it was her turn to answer. I braced myself for her response. Who would it be? I hoped she would say some random popular guy's name. After all, a guy like that has his pick of almost any girl he wants. What are the odds that he'd choose my girlfriend? So I'd be okay if she said some random popular guy. Or a celebrity. Man, a celebrity would be a great, safe pick. Nothing to worry about. I should have said a celebrity. Damn it. But what if she says some normal guy's name? What if it's someone who actually would want to hook up with her? What if it's my best friend? What if she says the name of a guy who is right here in this room? But she didn't say any of that. What she said was far worse. Something I never could have seen coming 15 years later. I still remember it word for word. Well, whenever I imagine having sex, it's never a face, you know? It's just this guy, and he's sweet and wonderful, but he doesn't have a face. And then a random girl chimes in, "It's your husband." And my girlfriend replies, "Yeah, I think it is." This was devastating to me because she'd just revealed to everyone that she was waiting until marriage, which meant that we weren't having sex. I was honestly okay with waiting for her, but when you're 16, it's important to at least pretend that you're having sex with the girl you've been dating for a year. She'd just outed me as a virgin. She'd revealed that, even when she thought about having sex, it still wasn't with me. When she thought about being married someday, it still wasn't with me. This was the most devastating part of all because, in my silly 16-year-old way, I had every intention of marrying her. It was the beginning of the end for us. That was all 15 years ago, of course. Today, we are each happily married to other people. And yes, she did wait, and yes, her husband is sweet and wonderful. After years of not speaking to each other, we did eventually reconnect, and became close friends again. I flew across the country for her wedding. And when my turn came, she took my fiance wedding dress shopping. We even vacationed together, the four of us. We had a wonderful time. When my wife found out she was pregnant, was I the first person she told? Nope. She told my ex-girlfriend, who had become her best friend. Today, our children play together. Hearing those words 16 years ago, it felt like my whole world had crumbled in just 3 seconds. But time does heal all wounds. TLDR, during a truth or dare game with our classmates, my girlfriend of 1 year revealed that we'd never had sex. She did not imagine ever having sex with me, and was not considering ever being married to me. Broke my silly teenaged heart, but we are both happily married now to other people, and are somehow still close friends. I have so many. So many. So, here's a few. Sorry for the length, but hey, whatever. It was senior ditch day and we were at a park pre-gaming or something, waiting for others to come, so we could all go bowling down the street. There were some kids hanging around, playing tag, or whatever. We joined in to play tag. Then we were hanging around on the monkey bars and this little girl comes over to me and says, "You're the ugliest person I've ever seen in my life." It was completely out of nowhere. So, I left that scene and went over to the bowling alley. TLDR, little girl thinks I'm ugliest dude ever. I was at a friend's wedding, and another friend's 2 younger sisters were there. They somehow got my AIM address, and would message me, which was fairly awkward, since they were jailbait. But my friend was, as she liked to put it, a sister from another mister, so I just treated them like I would younger sisters. I was talking to both of them, and then was walking away somewhere else, but decided to go back for some reason, maybe to grab another friend, to have a smoke or something, and they were standing there talking to each other. I walk around the corner and I hear one of them say he's really cool, but goddamn, he is so fucking ugly. Then they both looked up, and they had this look of surprise on their faces, so I knew that they were talking about me. I didn't really talk to them much after that. TLDR, friend's sisters think I'm cool but ugliest dude ever. I was in Puerto Pinasco, Mexico with a couple of friends who were getting married and wanted to scope out locations, get a cake ordered, blah blah blah. So, I got us a hotel room and we went out at night to have some drinks and party, or whatever. We were at an infamous place on the beach that I had been to a billion times previously, but never at night. They have music and dancing, but there's not a whole lot of folks there because it wasn't prime time vacation season. Plus, the whole Mexico is super violent and no one should go there thing was starting to take off. We all get drunk, and at some point I go find a bathroom. When I come back, they're gone. I figure they maybe went off to the beach or something, so I just sat there waiting for a bit. After another beer, I realize I've been waiting there alone for maybe 15 minutes. I go out to the parking area and their car is gone. Oh, this is great. I figure they went back to the hotel room real fast to get something, or have a smoke, or whatever. Fine, thanks for telling me. I go back to the club area and there are less and less people. I'm sitting there, finishing off another beer, wondering what the fuck I'm supposed to do now, and a girl comes over to me. She was extremely friendly, and I was thinking, wow, I never get hit on. This is awesome. She asks me questions about where I'm from, my name, etc. After a bit of back and forth, she asks me if I'm alone. I explain that it appears my friends have totally ditched me, and that I don't really know what to do at this point, so I'm just trying to make the best of it, and have a couple beers. She lights up and says, oh, I'll give you a ride back to your hotel. I was thinking, wow, this is great, now I don't have to somehow find a cab. She then appends her statement, if you admit that what you've done is wrong. I was like, what? What did I do? She says something like, I know you're on drugs, and if you just admit it, then we'll give you a ride back to your hotel. As a God-fearing Christian, it's something that I need to do. I was thinking, huh, does she mean weed? I mean, yeah, I smoked a little, but that's not really serious. She then proceeds to imply that I've been smoking crack or something. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've done nothing like that. She insists that I have. This goes on for a while until finally I just get up, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck you and fuck all of you, pointing to her friends. I haven't done any drugs, or whatever bullshit you're on about. You people are faking stupid. The 2 or 3 guys in her crew looked pissed, but I was way more pissed at that point. She was like, I'm only trying to help. It's what Christians do. I was like, get the fuck away from me, you faking crack hoe beach, and shove your Christian charity bullshit up your ass. With that, I walked out of the club area and onto the street. No cabs anywhere. No cars really anywhere, since it was like 3 AM at that point. It was very dark, since they don't really have street lights, but thankfully there was a full moon to at least see something. It was about 1.5 miles back to the hotel. So, I started walking down the dirt roads. As I was walking, I noticed a huge massive guys in the street. I got closer and realized a bunch of them were fighting. There was no sidewalk or anything. No way around. So, I had to just walk through the huge group of Mexicans fighting each other. I was still pretty pissed about the incident at the club, so I just held on to that as I walked through. I remember a few of them looked at me like I was insane, but nothing happened. Once I was more or less out of sight of them, I took off in a full-on sprint to the hotel. I was scared shitless. There are a lot of strays and huge expanses of land where nothing is built, or rather, it's been about 12 years, so I figured I'd better try to make the journey as short as possible. Every time a car came, I'd stop for a second and hope that they didn't fuck with me, but then I'd take off again when they were out of sight. I finally made it to the hotel and just collapsed into a bed. At like 4 AM my stupid friends burst in the door, scaring the shit out of me again. Needless to say, fuck everyone involved in this faking story. TLDR ditched in Mexico at 3 AM, called a crackhead by some stupid beach. My very first girlfriend and the love of my life had just returned from Marine basic training, a dream of hers. My sister passes away in a car accident, and I drive to girlfriend's house unannounced. When I pull up, she was walking into her house in what we like to call her fuck me dress. Her mom tells me to wait, because she is changing, which was odd and not normal. I wait. She comes down, and I learn of her getting back from a date, and she is going out again that night. I told her what had happened to my sister, and was in shock from every single direction. She says, for me to get upset would mean that I would have to care. Things were strange when she returned, but we had really truly been in love, and had written tons when she was away, and it all kind of hit me that I lost so much that day. I'm still affected by it to this day. Months later she calls me at my friend's house, and I brag about a girlfriend that I had just dated once that never went anywhere in a feeble attempt to blow her off. That single phrase has haunted me and affected my life for the negative. It was just as bad as leaving for 10 months on a deployment and coming back to my then wife's restraining order and seeing her in court 6 months pregnant. Bad luck? This school year I was in one of my classes. It's a small class and only has around 12 students in it, including me. Sometimes, I come into the class during lunch, because the lunchroom sucks and I have no friends during that period. Other students come too, and that day there were 8 people in the class. One girl was talking to 3 other girls, and she was telling a story about how someone accidentally sat on their glasses and broke them. I wear glasses, and I was generally curious how someone could do that. The class was quiet except for her story, so I figured it would be socially acceptable to ask how he did it. Immediately, and I mean, right after I finished the question, the girl replied with, "Why are you so annoying all of the time?" The worst part was, she wasn't even being a dick about it, she was actually asking. I was shocked, but before I could even say what, the rest of the room responded with, "Yeah. I've never dated anyone before, mainly because I'm fat, but I know that I'll remember this for a long time. You see, I've had only one friend since 8th grade, and recently one of his friends committed suicide. We were talking, and, long story short, I misheard something he said, and accidentally ignored him. He then got annoyed, and said that he's done, and can't put up with me any longer, and he hung up. We were in a Skype call. I knew that something was up, and that he was probably just depressed, and taking his frustration out on me, which was understandable for someone going through his situation. It took me a week to get him to talk to me, and explained how I annoyed him. Now we are still friends, and it was all a big misunderstanding. But his words have haunted me since. I now realize that the only reason he's still friends with me is because he's too much of a nice guy to extinguish my only relationship with anyone. I'm not sure if he actually finds me annoying, but I'm 90% sure of it. This happened right around the time the class agreed that I was annoying, so it basically confirmed my fears. TLDR, I was asked why I was so annoying. Entire room read in affirmation. This was right around the time I found out my only friend is secretly annoyed by me. That was a sheet 2 weeks. Sometimes, the most hurtful thing a person can say is nothing. My most recent relationship had its bumps, for sure. We fought sometimes, the stress of money, her kids, everything. After the kids went to their dad's house after fear of eviction, I thought things were getting better. The night before, we were laughing, making jokes, just like normal. I loved her like no other. Then I call her from work asking if she wanted some beer tonight. After calling maybe 5 times, I realize something's up. I rush home as fast as the speed limit would allow. I walk in, and everything of hers is gone. The house is trashed, her TV's gone, her luggage, maybe 15% of her clothing, her collectibles, her old consoles, everything she was able to carry. Found out later, after calling the police thinking maybe she was missing, she went to the train station to go to Texas to live with her aunt. I moved to another state for her at the beginning of the year. I left everything behind, took what I needed, and moved for her. I spent the entirety of 2014 doing what I could to make things better for her and I. And now it's all wasted. This relationship faked me up in so many different ways I don't even know how I could have a decent relationship in the future. The emotional beating I've taken is too much that I don't envy any woman that dares to get to know me better. Only thing that sticks to me comes from one of the really slutty girls from high school. This isn't rumor sluttiness. I mean show up to a party and fuck 7 guys at the party kind of slut. It really shouldn't have mattered what she thought, but it still gets to me. My friend calls me to set up a party, tells me to come to the girl's house for a bonfire. The night before, we had a party at another friend's and shortly after I left she had sex with all the guys there. As him on the phone, I hear her say in the background, "Who are you talking to?" And he says, "Oh, it's just B," and I hear her say, "Oh, I'm not faking him," and my friend just tells her, "Jesus Christ, just because he's coming to the party doesn't mean you have to fuck him, you hoe." Luckily I have good friends and we ditched the beach and had the party at my place. They all got to have sex with her the night before anyway. That one gets to me so hard just because the sluttiest, least picky girl in our whole school, who was planning on getting gang/banged by a whole party worth of dudes, thought I was too disgusting to have sex with me. What chance do I have with anyone that matters? People can say personality is what matters, and that good people see through it, but it's all just nonsense to make people feel better about themselves. This one was just the honest truth about my life. My time to shine. You're a 0 on 10. What even made you think you could approach me? You're such a sensitive bussy. After I got angry that this girl would cheat on me all the time and be a bitch and just say horrible comments to me, followed by the fake smile and saying, "Just kidding, oh my god, you're so skinny. No woman will ever want you." You're not even a man if you can't afford your own place. A black guy that can't play basketball? You're not black or a man AWW you little bitch. Are you upset that we are being mean? Maybe if you grow some balls it would help. If you killed yourself, no one would care. Fuck, I'd do it myself and probably get rewarded. You grew up poor and skinny. No one likes you or ever will. A skinny sheet like you doesn't deserve to be treated nicely. Yes, these are all true and this is just off the top of my head. I have way more. Most are from high school. Others are just from girls that would hang out with my friends when I was around. Honestly, women are the cruelest and most heartless assholes, but damned beyond to you if you call them fat. The most hurtful thing a woman has ever said to me is absolutely nothing. The complete lack of communication destroyed our relationship. She led me to believe the failure was my fault. I was horribly depressed and confided in her. My weakness was apparently unacceptable to her. Internally, after the breakup she let me take responsibility for pushing her away and not working hard enough towards a successful relationship. She continuously led me to believe we would get back together after we work on our relationship. I come to find out she was cheating on me the final 3 months of our relationship and was actively seeing the guy while we were together. What a miserable faking beach. Keep your chin up though, guys. I found this out a week ago. It immediately sparked something in myself. I'm no longer seeking approval from her. I'm better than her. I had thoughts of cheating at times as well. I believe everyone does. It's exciting. New. I turned those down because I was dedicated to what I thought was worthwhile. I do know why I typed this out as it barely goes along with the topic. Just needing to vent, I guess. Best friend of mine, who I'd known for 5 years at this point, was going through a tough time with her mum. Her mum was dating some Turkish guy who was abusing both of them and stealing money from them. He was threatening her mum, so she couldn't leave him. This led to her hitting depression pretty hard and making several attempts on her own life, which I managed to successfully talk her out of. She lost most of her friends as a result of her moods and other things and started to cling to me. I didn't mind as I'd rather she spoke to me than no one at all. We spoke every day for hours and she was really possessive, not wanting me to spend time with other girls or other people, and got annoyed if I talked about other girls. This continued for 15 months. Around 16 months in, the police intervened and the Turkish guy got deported. Things were starting to return to normal. One day I wake up and have a text on my phone. "Hi, you've done your job. We're done. Goodbye." That was in April 2013, nearly 2 years on, and I've never heard another word from her. No explanation, nothing. People suck indeed. TLDR. Dealt with my best friend of 5 years' suicidal messages, self-harm, and the mental issues which stemmed from months of abuse, for around 16 months, and at the end of it got tossed away like garbage. This fat ugly chick back in HS her and I were in Spanish and that was a Costa's class. You got a worksheet a day and turned it in at the end of class and you worked in groups, so one day I'm doing my worksheet with my headphones in and I'm a big guy, always have been. I got no problems when it comes to confidence and talking / asking girls out. But back to the story, she talking about who she would sleep with to save her mother's life to other girls, and like I said, I was listening to music. When the song ended I caught her asking, and her response was pointing at me and laughing while a couple girls laughed. The other 2 girls, one of them I actually grew up with since elementary and the other happened to be my best friend's girlfriend, and I looked at their faces. I stand up, go up to her, start whispering to her ear and say, "Have you looked in the mirror? You're nothing worth looking at, and at least I don't take up an entire seat on the bus. You can talk all the shit you want about me, but just know it doesn't faze me, because if I was to say this out loud you know you'd be crying right now. So keep your mouth shut." The 2 girls I knew told her after I talked to her that that was faked up what she said, that I was cool and loyal friend and always made people laugh. The next day they stopped talking to her. "Your body isn't muscly enough. You look like a boy, not a man." A fair few other girls have disagreed since and said that whilst I'm skinny I'm nicely toned and have great muscle contouring, which is really nice to know. "We should end this relationship. I'm not interested in you anymore." She pretended to be single for a month after, but a mutual friend, her best girlfriend, had already told me that she was dating someone the day she ended it with me. The mutual friend knew how much I loved that girl and did a great job of taking my mind off her. "You're cute but not hot. I wouldn't even think of dating you." A girly friend heard her say this to me and took me aside to tell me that I should ignore the girl and that I was plenty hot enough. Apparently my face showed that I was a bit hurt by the first comment. "You're weird, too quiet and too nice, it's creepy." She said this in front of a few girls and thankfully they all disagreed. "You're short, skinny, baby-faced, it's a no-go because you look too young." I suffer with stupidly low / non-existent self-confidence as it is / was, so they just make it worse. "No, I don't like you." When I was like 8 and I was crushing on a girl, with a couple of peers being messenger boys / girls and her friends saying she did like me back. Went on for like a year and I was constantly really nice and slowly building my courage. Only other recurrence I can think of was when I liked a friend of mine and was trying to build something with her. I was a fool and she trailed me along a bit before making it clear she was going out with this other guy when she had been on the fence and asking for my opinion for months. Stayed friends of course, and I didn't like this boyfriend she had. Slightly biased I know, but still I logically thought he was a loser and not very good for her. What she had said that hurt, as per op topic, was the day she told me our hang time had to be cut short and I had to leave her place because she had plans to go look at basement suites with this guy, with plans of moving out together. It hurt because I knew she was making a terrible decision. With the outburst of hurt I said she was a fool, as they had only been together for 5 months. He was 5 years older and her first time moving out. Year later I learned he was in fact a scumbag. Her quality of life was very low and he did some terrible things. She broke it off and gave me the "oh my god you were so right" spiel. Girls are silly. Current girlfriend of 3 years has yet to say or do something that has hurt. She's a real champ, if not a dork sometimes. My junior year of high school I met this one girl who I thought was perfect for me, had similar tastes in music, the same interests, and participated in similar hobbies. She was the girlfriend of my buddy who I was in a band with at the time. We would make small talk in between practices and breaks, and really got along well. Fast forward a few months. Band breaks up, so I don't see her around that much. About 1 or 2 months after that, they break up, and she sends me a message a few days later. We start talking up again, and arrange to grab some coffee. We meet up, and have a fun time just talking to each other about certain interests, music, and morals. We get on the subject of her friend, and how she was taken advantage of at a party one time. The second I heard this, I let her know how awful I thought that was, and how I had the highest respect for her, and how when someone says no it means no. She really appreciated that, and I could tell that she liked how strongly I felt about it. As time went on we hung out more and more, every week or so I would come over, and we would watch MTV's Liquid Television on VHS, bake cookies, no, not those kind of cookies, and make each other laugh. I never made a move on her. After a month of us hanging out, I told her that I really liked her and was wondering if she would like to start a relationship with me. Her response was that eventually yes, she disliked me a lot, but after her recent breakup she wasn't emotionally ready just yet. I was happy to hear that and told her that if she ever needs someone to talk to, I would be there for her. After another month or 2 of us hanging out we arranged to grab some pizza. I paid for everything and always was a gentleman to her. When we got to her place we hung out for a little longer, but then I need to start heading home, so I said we said our goodbyes and thanked each other for another fun time. In the awkward silence by the door I decided that I should go for it and kiss her. What's that could happen? The most she can say is no, so I leaned in and closed my eyes. She leaned in too, but assumed I was giving her a hug. She saw that I was getting closer to her lips and backed up. I noticed this as well and did the same, apologizing multiple times over. She said not to worry about it and that it was fine, but I still couldn't help but feel that there was a huge awkward elephant in the house. So I hugged her goodbye, left, and just felt awful. After a few weeks, I go on vacation with my family to the beach and didn't say a single word to her since then. Imagine my surprise when all of a sudden I get a long text message from her saying that she doesn't want anything to do with me anymore, that I made her uncomfortable, and that I forced myself on her, betraying her trust in me and ruining what friendship we had. I was heartbroken. I tried to reason with her and tell her that I had nothing but care and respect for her, that this was totally out of left field, and I feel terrible and sorry. I went back to the hotel and didn't talk to anyone. I get back to school and try to make small talk with her like we did before, but every time I got within arm's length she dashed away, as if I was some scary predator who scarred her for life. The next day I get called into the counselor's office wondering what in the world I'm in here for. Counselor comes in and tell me that it's about her and that she doesn't feel safe around me. The counselor tells me that the best thing to do is just stay away from her completely. I comply 100% and haven't spoke a word to her since. TLDR, I meet what I thought was the perfect girl in high school. We hit it off great for about 4 months. I try to kiss her once. She rejects it. I calmly say goodbye, smile, and leave. A few weeks later she texts me saying she wants nothing to do with me and that I forced myself upon her and took advantage of her. She then later takes it to school counselor saying I'm a threat to her because I wanted to talk to her about her text. 2 stories. Got, you are so obese. I was on the way back on a school trip in the 8th grade. A very popular and generally very nice girl sitting in the seat in front of me turned around and says it and then turns back. We hadn't interacted at all that day. I occasionally chatted with her in class, but not often. It hurt so much because she was, and continued to be, such an uplifting and nice person. I never heard her say another mean thing to anyone, ever. But he is also the ugliest in 6th or 7th grade, whichever was the last year we had reading class. The teacher was assigning seats. We had enough chairs that she put an empty one between each student. I can't remember how she picked the order. As she is calling them out, I get put at the back of the center row. This girl, who I considered a friend, was sat in front of me with an empty seat in between. She asked the teacher if she could please get another seat. The guy to my right said, "Why? Big damn head is the smartest kid in class." Yeah, but he is also the ugliest. I didn't say anything back. I just stared at my book. This was also loud enough that the whole class and teacher were in on the conversation. This is what my ex-girlfriend said when we were fighting after our breakup. "You're so funny. You preach all this stuff about Christianity and go on about all the people in your life that aren't living according to your moral standards. You judge and condemn them from this little sphere of perfection that you live within and believe others should strive to attain. And yet, I almost want to laugh when I look at the living contradiction that you are. In a sense you are exactly what you hate and look down upon, despite the irony that you believe yourself to live on a pedestal above others. You are not above others' will, and you have no right to judge in the way that you do. You quote Bible verses every time you talk, but I only ever see them applied when they better your standpoint. After allowing you to come on the Liberty trip you did not thank me. You were just glad that I decided to stop being wrong. In the end, you treated the trip as if it were yours, and you were a total ass to me. Do you know why you did this to me? Even though I was choosing to put you before any of my personal desires throughout the whole ordeal. It's because you already thought you were better than me, and what right would I ever have to stop you from coming on my own trip, or treating it as such? You do realize the ridiculous reason why you're mad at me, right? And why you unfriended me on Facebook? It's literally for no reason more than the fact that I quite respectfully broke up with you. After all, what right would I have to do that, since you are so much better than me? Do you not at all see that you are living exactly as someone you would condemn? You are so self-righteous and go on and on about your faith, but at the end of the day you just aren't living it. God says to love others. He says to not put ourselves above others, as he would never do for us. He says to not judge, lest we be judged. And in the end, he says to stop pointing out everyone else's flaws when we can't even see our own. Have you ever paused to listen to the Bible verses you spout? Stop using them only to condemn others. For once, think about their application to your own life. And hey, feel free to send a message back. Be the one to open my eyes about all the things I can't see I'm doing. No one has the right to call someone out without being called out themselves. I did deserve a majority of it in hindsight, but it really hurt nonetheless. She was very depressed while we are dating without my knowledge as well. There's a lot of context needed though. On top of that, she's dating my best friend now. Surprisingly enough, I'm okay with it, because I really don't think she's attractive in any respect anymore, looks wise or personality wise. And my best friend and her are a better match anyway. True story, after dating this girl who I had thought was the love of my life for about a month, I broke up with her. We had been talking back and forth for about 6 months previous to dating. It was one of those immature fights where I thought we would simply get back together the next day. She didn't see it that way and we never dated again. It actually took me a while to recover emotionally from that. A few years later we ended up hooking up and had incredible sex when she came back from college. We talked about the past and of course we talked about our breakup that happened many years ago. I remember the conversation word for word to this day. So why did you ever break up with me if you liked me so much? Me, I don't know, I guess like all my previous relationships I thought we would get back together sooner than later. Her, oh, well you know I was virgin back then, right? Me, yeah of course I know, I was hoping to be your first, I wasn't. Well if you would've waited a few more days I was going to blow you. Me, equals, TLDR, I broke up with a girl I loved when I was 15, never had sex with her. Go on to have sex with her 4 years later, and admits that if I had waited a few more days I would've been her first. I was getting high with this girl I liked and her friends in her car one day. I thought she at least liked me in that way a little. Anyway, she made a comment on how she was buying a new pipe and didn't know what to do with the old one. So I said something like, well you could give it to me, I need a new one. She totally lost it. Who the fuck do you think you are? Why would I give you my pipe? Really furiously. Seemed like she said it like that to make it blatantly clear to everybody in the car she had no interest in me and that I was an idiot for suggesting she gives me one of her belongings. We were like 6 miles away from the school, smoking in some parking lot under some trees. I just collected my shattered soul for a minute. Then without a word I just got out of the car and started walking back to school. Hey, where are you going? Back to faking school? Don't be like that. Get in the car. Fuck you. Ended up missing the rest of the day because the area was unfamiliar and I got lost. Eventually hours later I found a payphone and got my dad to come find me and get me. Lol, this still kind of stings, but I definitely got my revenge much later on. In high school I was a really skinny soccer player. I was definitely athletic, but I was tall and lanky. Anyway, me and 2 friends went to go pick up these 3 girls and drive out to another guy's property as he was having a bonfire. They got in my truck mid-conversation with my other 2 friends, and one of them was talking about this girl that he was hoping would be there. Well, one of the girls must have misinterpreted the direction of the conversation, because with a total beach attitude she simply says, I don't think you have a chance with her, meerkat attack. You are not good looking, and you are way too skinny. I laughed it off and was like, damn, nice to meet you too. We weren't even talking about me, but thanks. Anyways, we were not in the same circle of friends, so I didn't talk to her that much ever again. She never apologized or anything. She was just a beach. It's not even like your typical gorgeous 10/10ths beach either. She was pretty average, you know. But I never said anything mean or anything. Fast forward about 3 years, I changed sports in college and started playing rugby instead and really started lifting in order to fit my new position that I was supposed to play. I came home for Christmas and we to a local bar with some buddies from high school that I still talk to and hunted with from time to time. Anyway, sure enough she's at the bar, and at this point, I'm pretty drunk, but she was pretty wasted, and it was pretty evident she was there with some other guy. Anyway, a couple hours later, she's all over me, putting her hand under my shirt and touching my stomach and arms and all that shit. As me and my friends are going to leave, she stops me and asks me. I assume she thought she was trying to be sexy or something, but it was more like a drunken ramble, and says, where do you think you're going? You're staying with me. I laughed and said sorry, but you're just not very good looking, and left. Didn't stop to listen to a response or anything. The downside is, when my friend asked me why I did that, and I retold him the previous story, he laughed and told me I should have hate faked the hell out of her and then just immediately left. Kinda regret I didn't do that. Oh well. My relationship with my partner was falling apart due to a dysfunctional sex life. I had a problem lasting, if you will, and she also had some issues of her own which basically negated any kind of foreplay from our relationship. I could never hold that against her, and I still don't, as it was not her fault in any way, but it's important to note as it made this situation all that more difficult to work through. Eventually, it got bad enough to where I decided I would see my family doctor and get prescribed medicine, Zoloft, to help with my problem. When I returned to the city where my partner and I lived, it seemed as though she began to entirely boycott our sexual relations. This is where the whole most painful thing ever said to me occurred. When I confronted my partner with the issue, she agreed, yes, I am boycotting sex with you. I was just waiting for the pills to start to work. At the time, I was furious because, if you know anything about the ejaculatory patterns of men, which we both did, you know that two of the most common ways to build sexual stamina are through relaxation during sex, and also just having a lot of sex. The mentality behind this statement effectively worked against both premises, and it also dealt a severe blow to my self-confidence and self-esteem. Was having sex with me really that unbearable? Although I cannot attest to the impact of her sexual nature in determining my unbearableness, because I know it must have had some impact, but the fact that she said this / felt this way absolutely destroyed me. I was absolutely in love with this woman, and she couldn't even bear the thought of having sex with me. It was a horrible feeling, and it never left. That feeling buried itself into my psyche, and therefore into our relationship, and it eventually drove us apart. We ended up separating a couple of months later. For the record, I do not blame my estranged partner for any of this, as she had issues of her own which were a driving force of her behavior. But the main thing I want you all to take is this: if you and your partner are experiencing any kind of major turbulence caused by sexual dysfunction, I urge you to please seek a form of counseling. And most of all, please try to be as considerate as possible when dealing with and talking about these issues, as many of us, if not most, are highly sensitive about our sexuality, and as you can see from my story, a few ill-spoken words in that regard can do a lot of damage to a relationship. Thanks for reading. When I was in the 5th grade, I had an enormous crush on a girl in my class. As it were, word got out to my friends firstly, and eventually to her friends. However, not to her. This was not initially apparent to me, so when her friends came to me telling me they had told her, and she had responded positively to it, I was ecstatic. Never had I imagined she would even notice me, let alone want to be my girlfriend. Needless to say, it absolutely made my day. I was telling all my friends about it, and they were all pretty damn excited for me. It felt great. Later that day, while we were arriving to our final class period, she had apparently been told about it all. She walked up to me. The classroom is now full and everyone is expecting us to get together. Not the case. She, in front of all our classmates, thought it would be a great idea to reject me, loud enough so everyone could hear her. She said something along the lines of, "Mind you, we were 5th graders, you think I like you? I don't like you at all. I don't want to be your girlfriend now or ever." She proceeded to walk to her seat as I sat in mine, feeling everyone's eyes still on me. I felt so embarrassed, and I couldn't help it. I started to feel the tears rolling down my face. I tried to hide it, but no such luck. I can't remember if I've had worse told to me after that from other girls, but for damn sure that is the moment that I remember best. It was the first time I opened up about a girl, and the way she put me down was just terrible. I was dating a girl that had some very strong insecurities and had been projecting them into our relationship and projecting her previous bad boyfriends onto me. She found the negative in any and everything. It was getting ridiculous, but when you think you are in love and are on the inside looking out some shit you just can't see, suggestion, listens to your best friend. Anyways, we had been struggling with these insecurities and arguing on and off, mostly on, for some time, so I wanted to give her something very personal for Christmas to see if she could see that I wasn't like the other assholes she had dated, by her definition, and that our relationship wasn't shit. She had always talked about this place she used to visit when she lived just outside of Philly, Tyler State Park. We had visited there once, and I had taken some pictures of the place while we were there. So I decided to do something really cool. I bought an antique window pane from a salvage yard, sanded it down by hand, and cleaned it up. Then I went to Kinko's and printed out some scenic pictures from our trip and blew them up to the size of the window pane. I added some velcro to the pane and the pictures to fasten the pictures to the window pane, and I also added some hangers to the window pane. Boom. You had a window to a place she loved to visit hanging on a wall, like it was just outside the window. The pictures were interchangeable, and I also put 2 sets of hangers on the window pane so that it could be hung landscape or portrait. I gave it to her and told her, this is something that's special to me because it's special to you. It's also something that can grow with us because as we travel together through life and visit new places, we can hang new pictures of our special places in it. She asked where I got the window pane from, to which I replied I got it at a salvage yard. Her immediate response was, great. You got it at a junkyard. That's what you think of our relationship. That was the last straw for me. TLDR. Some people just want to see the world burn, and there's nothing you can do about it. Let them burn their own world, not yours. Over the course of the last several months of our relationship, nobody likes people like you. Normal people don't think / talk / etc. Point like you. Fortunately I like you, because I don't think anyone else would. This was combined with several self-destructive behaviors on her part, which were somehow my fault, and constant accusations that anything that didn't go her way was some slight against her. You don't care / nobody cares about me, etc. Finally had 2 of my friends, and one of hers, call me out and say she was treating me like shit, and she didn't deserve the patience I was showing her. They were not aware of what she'd been saying at that point, just her actions. So I broke it off. Last exchange between the 2 of us: whatever. Enjoy being alone for the rest of your life, asshole me. I'll be honest, it'll be better than this has been. Unfortunate, because when it was good, it was very good. But those last few months, man. I wish I could say that my response meant I shrugged it off, but that's not the case. The fallout shattered me. It's been over a year, and a big move, since this has all happened, and I've only just recently managed to pick the pieces up to the point that I've tried dating again. It's going to take the right girl to help with some of the trust bits, but at least as far as my life is concerned, I feel like things are coming back together. Oh, I have a few. Although I'm a lesbian, I'm still answering. Back in my teen years I'd dated this girl on and off. I loved her. I'd fallen in with the wrong crowd and had been abused my whole life by my family. I sought help, and my therapist basically reminded me why I liked her so much and what I loved about her. I sped home to tell her. Unable to wait, I went on her Facebook and saw all these new pictures of her and some boy. I left a message saying, "Hey, who's this?" And her only reply was, "I'm sorry." A few years later we got back in touch, and I was being cautious, but I was also going through a terrible breakup with someone else. I was so miserable, and then in the midst of all this her boyfriend or her boyfriend's friend, I genuinely don't remember which, added me on Facebook, and the only pictures they seemed to have were of her and the boyfriend. I made a joke on my blog about how my Facebook was impossible to find usually, and yet this guy had no problems, rejected the request, and thought nothing of it. Of course this girl sees that, sees my miserable breakup, sad sack posts, and assumes it's all about her. She tells me it's creepy, and she's going to call the cops. I really could have killed myself. I felt so awful, not just because it had happened, but that she thought so little of me. She assumed that to be the case. I guess it's a good thing she's out of my life now. Had a crush on a girl who was a good friend in high school, but she didn't feel the same way and rejected me pretty hard. She was one of my best friends and she cut me off, like the Got I song, like I was nothing to her. Over the next summer I just flat hated her. I was so heartbroken and pissed off that I didn't even want to hear her name. Earlier that year we got a new transfer student. He seems nice at first, but we quickly could see that not all his dogs are barking. He just gave off a major creepy vibe. He rarely spoke and just stared at people, mostly at girls in the room. He quickly gets ostracized from the group and takes to sitting by himself in the classroom away from everyone else. So we dub him Puerto Rico. When school started up the next fall, out of the blue one day, I get a call at my house from Puerto Rico. Hey Coil 1, this is Puerto Rico, real name used. He didn't know his nickname. Do you have former crush/friend's phone number? I didn't, and even if I did, I didn't feel right giving it to him. He never talked to her, ever, and given his behavior, and because she had a run-in with a stalker before, some red flags went up. I said I didn't, and he hung up. The next day, when talking to a mutual friend whom I'll name Chad, he said that he too had gotten a phone call from Puerto Rico. I was still pissed at her, and I was trying so hard to avoid her, but I decided that as much as I didn't want to talk to her, I probably should warn her. I walked to her locker during a break between class and caught her and her friend just as they were walking away. I said, hey, you'll never believe this, but Puerto Rico called me yesterday asking for your phone number, and I think that. Oh bullshit Coil 1, you're such a liar. You probably talked to Chad and heard his story, so now you're just making that up to talk to me. I can't believe you would. At that point, her friend grabbed her by the arm and dragged her away. I just stood there in shock, processing what she said and wondering what the fuck she just accused me of. Even though I was telling her the truth, it just stung that she would think so of me as to make up something just to talk to her. I was just trying to give her a heads up so that Puerto Rico didn't end up wearing her skin or something, and she calls me a liar to my face. TLDR, girl rejects me, cuts off all contact with me, spends summer never wanting to see her again. I break the silence trying to warn her of a potential stalker, and she accuses me of making it up and calls me a liar to my face. I was only trying to help. I'm the girl in this scenario. Knew it guy'd work, and I'd flirt with each other almost from his first day. I'm married, he has a girlfriend. We start Skyping at work, just talking about work stress and our shared love of music. He would sometimes come to my desk just to hang out. Sometimes I'd pop by his office just to say hi. We seem to really enjoy hanging out/chatting, etc. Things are going fine. My marriage hits a rough patch that has nothing to do with it guy. My life is spiraling, and I accidentally tell him some too personal information. Recover from the awkwardness and we start chatting and hanging out more after that. Another month or so passes and I get up the courage, go to his office, and invite him to lunch. He's a real gentleman, let me down easy explaining that he has a girlfriend. This is the moment where I learn that I have douche tendencies. I didn't mean it that way. I'm married. I'm just gonna go. He hung his head just before I walked out of his office. Actively avoided me. Didn't talk to me for 2 weeks until a work issue forced him to, and I made sure to look him in the eye during that moment, trying to apologize with a look on my face. I could feel his anger toward me. Now, we are back to hallway pleasantries, but it isn't the same. I truly want to apologize to him for my reaction. He was right, I did mean it that way, and he was right to turn me down. I've been attracted to him since the moment we were introduced. I'm not a hoe, a slut, or the type of woman to step on someone else's happiness. The friendship we developed is precious to me, and if platonic friendship is all I can have with him, then yes please, thank you, that is what I want. This is exactly what I'd like to say to him, but I'll only have this conversation when I can finally get him alone, face to face. I will not send this message in an email or him. I need for him to see the expression on my face and hear the sincerity in my voice. I want my friend back. So I knew this chick in high school. We dated all of 2 weeks before her mom said she had to focus on school and not boys. They were pretty overbearing and protective. We stayed friends, went on occasional dates as friends, but there was always something more there. Others would see us and always assume we were together with how we acted. Fast forward a few years. She's on her second year of college and parents are being way more liberal. Worked in a strip mall. I'm 2 stores down. We see each other all the time after not really talking for a year. So I casually suggest we catch up. Go out. To my surprise she agrees. We go to the movies, little hand holding all as well. Drop her off, she kisses my cheek. Second date is dinner at a Applebee's with a few others she works with. People are saying we look like a cute couple and she doesn't correct them. Drop her off, same deal but a little more lingering. Then she drops off the face of the earth for a week. Go out again about 2 weeks later, and after we finish dinner and a movie at my place we are in her parents' driveway, and she drops this: I feel like I'm leading you on and I'm sorry. I've been seeing several different guys the past few weeks, and while you're great I just don't want anything permanent. I wanna explore and have fun finally. Can we still be friends? Haven't talked to her since that night, unless it was a formal hey when I ran into her. Kept her on Facebook though. She was in a relationship for a while, then it ended, and hasn't been listed in one since. That ended like 3 years ago. Meantime I moved on and now live with my girlfriend in our place, but it messed me up for a while. I went to high school in Hawaii. Before anyone says how cool. No, it really wasn't. There's a lot about Hawaii that makes it a difficult place to live in, but that's not the story. I'm fair-skinned and tall. Because I grew fast. I was rake thin. Because I'm fair-skinned in a place that largely has mixed ancestry and those that are Caucasian can actually tan where I could not. I looked really pale. I'm not that pale-skinned, really, but in comparison I looked almost sickly pale. So, a lot of people assumed I was on drugs. As in when a woman from the local drug rehab clinic came to give a presentation in my class, she came in to sit down next to me and kept hinting she was waiting for me to ask about the program. 3 guys were sitting 2 rows over with sunglasses on and staring at the walls, and she thought I was the one on drugs. Also beside the point. People who talked to me for any length of time realized I was pretty far removed from the drug scene, but people who only sort of knew me, hit or miss. I didn't realize how bad it was until I had the following conversation. I was sitting around one day talking to this girl I knew that I was moderately friendly with. She was one of the few people I knew in the school who use this same BBS. Kids ask your parents what that means, and we were talking about it. One of her friends came over and sat near us and waited until the first girl walked away to drop this bombshell on me. I feel so bad right now, she said. I went to a party last night and was having a lot to drink. This guy had a joint. I didn't like him at all, but I wanted the joint, so I made it with him. But now I'm hungover and I really want another joint. I'd do anything for one right now. She then looked me dead in the eye to make sure I didn't miss the implication and repeated, anything. Nice to know that she thought I was where she was scraping the bottom of the barrel. I pretended that I didn't understand and told her I had to get to class. So this is 20 hours after the post, so it will probably be buried into oblivion. After dating a girl for 9 months and leaving for college, I decided to end the relationship. I went Utah, she was going to Kansas, and I didn't want to do a long-term relationship. In the breakup conversation she asked me to marry her, which I knew she wanted, and we were both bleeding our hearts out over Skype. After a week my parents persuaded me to call her, as they were still talking to her, and they wanted me to smooth the waters after the rocky end. I eventually called her, filled with anxiety, hoping for an unrealistic compromise into the realm of understanding and acceptance. In that conversation I was greeted with something else, a list of grievances, as long as the Declaration of Independence. Most of these didn't faze me, however, there was one in particular that has stuck with me to this day. She stated for the whole time that we were dating, that I had sexually molested her, that all the sexual things that I had done were not consensual. This tore my heart. As a backstory parenthetical, she had been molested by her brother while growing up for years. She asked for me to keep it private, which I did, but found extremely difficult. I hated the man because I loved her. Additionally, I had helped 2 other girls with rap experiences, even going to court as a character witness. So I was super sensitive to the topic. To hear that I had hurt someone for an extended period in that way broke me down to my core. I couldn't fathom it. To be honest, I was a 18-year-old with an average to high sex drive, so I would want to do sexually things a lot. Although, we never fully committed and had full-blown sex, the furthest we got was oral. During the conversation I still had an exceptional amount of feelings for her. I still loved her. I just knew the relationship wasn't going to work for us. So to hear from that person that I sexually hurt her for a long time just broke me down. It has been roughly 3 years since that conversation. I haven't had a serious relationship since, though I have tried. Furthermore, those statements have made me leery to dating anyone, and I'm super scared to be with women for that reason. I have struggled to deal with self-loathing as I feel like I hurt someone in a way that I despised others for. I hated those people, so I hated myself. Okay, stick with me. Girlfriend of 11 years. In the past, she has always treated the subject of my late father, who I loved and miss badly, with incredible empathy and love and kindness. She has literally been perfect about it, by which I mean she was kind, and then she smartly just STFU, which is what I wanted. Fast forward to the past week. We are trying for a kid. Christ. We have broken up a few times in the last 2 years. She has concerns about me and how I might be with her and or potential family in the future, volatile temper and stuff. Anyway, she feels like she has not allowed to raise certain issues. If these issues bring up stuff for me about my father, it's true, and just cause you're with someone doesn't mean they get to poke their faking nose into every part of your life. Anyway, so 2 days ago we get into a bad fight which centered around this issue, her not being allowed to suggest that I have still not dealt with my dad's death, and that this impacts on our current relationship. Anyway, I want the beach to shut the fuck up. Cannot bear to listen to her. Old stuff from other types of fights being dredged up. I throw and smash a lamp at the wall, nowhere near her, but I had previously thrown and smashed a dinner plate near her head, and because of that she had rightfully left me for 4 months. Anyway, the fight continues, and she is angrier than me now, cause now I'm just tired and fed up and worried about the fact that I'm throwing things again. Anyway, she gets the car keys to drive off. As she is about to leave she looks around and says, "I'm sure your dad would be so proud of you." She knows, beach faking knows 100% that this, or anything like this, is literally the single most hurtful kind of thing she could say to me. And she did it anyway. And, Redditors, I don't have a faking clue what to do. I'm stuck with, on the one hand, feeling empathy for her, cause I keep her at arm's distance and don't engage with her about this issue, even though it's probably affecting her relationship too, and on the other hand, simply hating her and just making the decision to never forgive what she said. Part of me feels I will never be able to trust in her total kindness and decency again. It may be harsh, but that's who I'm anyway. I know, upon reading this back, that there is a ton of dysfunction in this relationship. So, any suggestions or similar situations? Throw away because obvious reasons. This is because of what I said to someone, namely my ex. Now before any of you freak out, and I'll explain below what I said, there was a very good reason for it. I told my ex that for the last year that we were dating, I didn't love him, and I didn't care about him. Obviously, he didn't take this well. However, it was the only way to get him to leave me be. See, he was abusive. Extremely abusive. Aside from the emotional and mental trauma, he'd tell me things along the lines of, "If you leave me, I'll kill you. No one is going to love you if you break up with me. You've been gaining weight / you're fat / I'm the only one who's going to look at you twice because you gained 10 pounds. etc. The list goes on. I broke up with him about 9 to 10 months before I said that to him. During those 9 to 10 months he consistently tried to contact me through Facebook, texts, friends, etc. He wouldn't back the fuck off. Finally, I took a call from him in which he said he still wanted me to be his friend, and then later get back together with me, and that he knew I still cared about him. At that point, I'd had it. Not only had he scared me into staying with him by threatening to kill me, now he was harassing my friends, and he still thought that I would get back with him. So I told him the truth. I told him that for the past year of dating him, that I hadn't loved him, and that I didn't care about him. That he was an abusive fuck, and that he scared me into a relationship with him. That one of the only reasons I'd transferred was to get away from him. Then he lost it. Screaming, yelling, anger, all the rage issues that he'd had came through over the phone. Then he calmed down. Apparently he was heading to work and told me he never wanted to speak to me again. But he did. Thankfully, it was more or less just calling a truce between the two of us. Our friends are in the same friend group, and he, my ex, would beach whenever those friends would hang out with me. I was tired of it, they were tired of it, we called a truce. Last time I saw him was at the birthday party of one of our best friends, and I brought along my current boyfriend, who is now friends with all of them excluding my ex. He was fine, though I still just avoided him, and stayed with my boyfriend for the most part. So that's my story. Judge me as a beach if you want, but I think in the case of you fearing for your life, it's justified. TLDR, abusive ex-boyfriend threatens to kill me and then later wants to be friends. I tell him I didn't love him or care for him for the final year of our relationship. Late to the party by hours. Freshman high school year I went to my one and only dance. Worked up the courage to ask a girl to dance. All she said was, "Are you a freshman?" I responded yes, and she turned away and didn't talk to me. I was bullied by both genders in middle school. I went to an all-male high school. Being so casually turned off tore into me like a hatchet. I sobbed the rest of the night and cried on my way home with my mom. Apparently my brother also made fun of me during my high school years to keep me tough against the bullies. My social skills are broken, and I have anger problems. I don't go outside anymore, except to go work at apps. I can make social conversation, but I don't trust people at all. All my relationships are on the surface, because I'm afraid of being hurt. Going to talk to someone won't help. I'm just consigned to living my life alone, because I can't trust people, to be kind, and the fact that I'm not used to social interaction. I'll be the insane old dude eating his TV dinner on the third floor apartment who has gone nowhere in life and is just a road bump in someone's daily schedule. Edit. I'm like 20 now and haven't talked to women for 5 years. Only when I started my job did I start having to interact. And of course it was with authority figures, in which my mom was an asshole and has me fearing women anyways. A girl who was engaged to be married to some guy she hardly knew, most likely primarily to get a green card, who was serving in Iraq or something, asked me out at work. We used to work together. At first I did not know she was engaged, but when I found out she played it off like she just wanted to go out with me as friends. I was really upset at this, because I took her offer as a romantic kind of thing. I told her I don't want to get involved with her as friends, because I have feelings for her, and in the end it's just going to break my heart. She convinced me to go out anyway, and after a few dates we started making out and almost faking. One day we were about to fuck, and she stops me, right before I stick my thing in. She starts crying, and tells me she can't keep doing this. She then says that she likes me on some level, but that I could never compare to her fiance. That statement really hurt my feelings, because I was starting to fall in love with her. I thought she could be mine, and forget that other guy. It made me cry. I tried to convince her that it could work out between us, that we would fight tooth and nail, and make it work somehow. She didn't go for it, and ended up marrying the guy she hardly knew for convenience.